Well, I bet you guys thought that I forgot about Year of Lemire, but I didn't. It's been a long few months, all right? It's busy out here, all right? I'm about to graduate college soon, so don't judge me. Hello everyone. Britton here, also known as Some Okie Dude, and I am back with another episode of The Year of Lemire, where I talk about the works of noted comic book creator, Canadian comic book creator, Jeff Lemire, and today I'm going to be talking about what is very likely my favorite work from Jeff Lemire, and that is Sweet Tooth. Yes, this was written and illustrated by him. This is the compendium that I bought a few years ago because I just didn't want to go through the hassle of getting all the trades anymore. But yes, I've had this compendium ever since, and I don't regret it. It's a really good way to get the whole series without, having to track down all the trades. Though I don't know if the trades are really out there anymore. I think it's stuck to just a compendium and the collected editions now. Now, I imagine some of you are probably thinking, hey, Britton, didn't you already do a video talking about Sweet Tooth? And, yeah, I did. But I found that previous video was a bit unsatisfying. I don't really like how I presented myself in that video, and also the audio wasn't very good. I mean, that's kind of the thing with a lot of my old videos. The audio wasn't that great, but particularly in that one, it's just, I just didn't really care for it. I unlisted it, so I'll link it down below if you guys want to watch the old review, but I think this one will be a lot better, so take this video as the new and improved version of reviewing my favorite comic from Jeff Lemire, and that is Sweet Tooth. Also, before I get into this video, I want to thank the people who did the buddy read with me on my Discord, as well as in the Talking Story Discord. So Natalie and Ori in particular, they were both really great. I really enjoyed hanging out with them and talking about this series that I love so much. Didn't get as many people to do this. I mean, I get it. It's kind of a niche, I guess. But I'm glad the people who did join, and I appreciate them all. And special shout out to them while I'll be discussing this exceptional comic book series. Reading Jeff Lemire is kind of like listening to Radiohead, or at least that's kind of how I view it. I mean, you sit down, and when you start, you're initially put off by the strangeness of what you're consuming. But before you know it, for whatever reason, you're just deeply compelled by it, and you can't really turn away, even when you want to. It was Sweet Tooth, this series here, where I started my long-time love affair with Jeff Lemire and his work, and it still remains my favorite. I guess it's just something about those first books, I guess. Even after all these years, Sweet Tooth is still my favorite. Though there are some series that I've read from Jeff Lemire that I've really enjoyed as well, which I hope to get to before the end of this year, because there are a couple other things I'd like to do in the Year of Lemire sphere, if you will. Very nice wordplay there. But I don't really believe in perfection, but there are some stories that come close to perfection for me, and Sweet Tooth is one of them. I do think, there are flaws in this story, which I'll get into. But I do think that this is one of the most perfect comics ever constructed. Really, there's not a lot that I can complain about in this series, at least in my opinion. It's hard for me to do a purely objective review of Sweet Tooth. It's too close to my heart, kind of like The Great Gatsby, which ironically enough I covered last week on this channel, or Ulysses for that matter. I can't just shut off my love for it. It's one of those where I waited a very long time to discuss how this series made me feel and for the right words to come to me, and now I think I have them. And it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing when you discuss things that you love very deeply. Sweet Tooth, though, is just such an odd amalgamation of styles and tones and themes. It's part gritty, post-apocalyptic drama, part children's book. It's Jeff Lemire really bringing everything that he has, the comics medium, up to this point, and really letting loose and showing everyone what he's capable of. And it's also just really frickin' weird, man, just from the art to the characters to even the concept of the story. If you don't get the idea that this is a weird comic just from looking at the cover here, which, why does this boy have antlers? I really can't help you there. How can I be objective about Sweet Tooth? I could definitely say a dozen things about it that are very much critic speak. I can definitely say that the characters are complex and interesting and have arcs that Lemire brilliantly sets up and pays off throughout the series. That the series tilters from oddly heartwarming and folkloric to this very unflinching in its look into the depravities of man at its most desperate hour. That Lemire's style is unapologetically his own, and that aside from maybe Roughneck, which I've covered before in Underwater Welder, Sweet Tooth is probably the best use of his unique style that I've seen up to this point. And all of those things are definitely true, very, my true honest thoughts about this series, and I doubt many of you would really mind that too much, but for me, it's just, it's not enough. This series is just too strange, too offbeat, and dare I repeat the point, just too damn weird for that. I think what contributes very much to the weirdness of Sweet Tooth is the art. Now, I understand that the art of Jeff Lemire is definitely an acquired taste. I'm not going to say it's perfect. There are definitely some weird aspects to it. I mean, you could just, hold on, let me just find this here. Hold on, where's, this, you can see this. It's very strange. He has very strange anatomy. His characters are very odd, very spindly, often sometimes neurotic, maybe even freakish at times. There's sort of the weirdness of his style, kind of reminds me a little bit of Steve Ditko, just without the weird didactism that is sometimes in his work, a bit more intimate, if you will. I will say that his art is definitely an acquired taste. It's not for everybody. I mean, there are some parts that even I am kind of not really my thing. Sometimes the anatomy, there are some points where it's kind of odd. A lot of his characters often look cross-eyed, which is always kind of weird. I mean, I'm not saying he can't draw. It's just sometimes you get kind of these weird, like right here, you can see Jeopard right there. His eyes look a little crossed, and there's a couple of sequences like that throughout the series. Some of his facial expressions are kind of weird as well, but I do really like Lemire's. I don't mind it so much. I actually think the guy, he's really good at paneling. He's very good at establishing an atmosphere. He has a very unique style that he keeps to in his work. I really love the sequences in this where he, is kind of establishing an atmosphere, if you will. Let me see. Let me find one. And there's also action sequences in this that are really good, and there's also some really strange experimental panels that are really good as well. So hold on, let me just find. He's good at paneling. You see that right there. It's a little spoilery for Lemire. What's another one where you can kind of see the oddness of where's a freaking establishing here's a good one right here. I really like how he establishes a mood. He's really good at that. I think he's very good at that. But what I can really say about Jeff Lemire, aside from just showing off his art all day, is that the style that Lemire plays with is his own, and there's no really anybody else who can touch it. I mean, I really especially like when he does watercolor. I'm a big watercolor guy. I really like watercolor in art. Let me find where Jeff Lemire does it. Right here, you can see it. Which is kind of funny. This scene kind of reminds me of Blood Meridian a little bit. That one sequence with the babies. But I will say that Sweet Tooth is not quite as bleak as Blood Meridian. Definitely more like The Road, just not as I don't want to say monotonous, because it sounds like I think The Road is bad. It's just, the plot moves a little more. It's not quite as meandering as McCarthy can sometimes see. And I've heard it be compared to Mad Max as well, which is a solid comparison, particularly with the animal cultists that show up in this as well. But yeah, I like how he uses watercolor, though. It's always really fluid, and I think it adds a very dreamlike atmosphere to his work, and it's no different here. We also see some appearances from some of his frequent collaborators, like Matt Kent is one who pops to mind. Let me find some of his stuff. Where is he at? Come on, where is he at? Where is he at? There's also some other people like Nate Powell. Here's Nate Powell right here. You can just see that. Which is pretty solid. Emmy Lennox, who people might know from Plutona, which I covered on this channel, is also done is also very good. Here's Matt Kent right here. Also uses watercolor. I really enjoy this. This is also probably a little spoilery. Sorry. Let me go back here. There we go. I like the colors here. Very watercolory. Though the colors are mostly done by a guy named Jose Ventila, I think is the guy's name. Let me look. Let me see. Jose Villarrubia. Probably butchered that. I'm really sorry. But Emmy Lennox also makes an appearance in this, and she's also good, though I've kind of already said what I need to say about her art in my Plutona review. So, all right, enough about the art. I've gone on too long about that. Let's move on. I will say, even though I really love Sweet Tooth, and I think it's a really great series about, I really like how it has this kind of oddball charm to it, and this kind of combination of this sort of almost like a children's book at times. I mean, especially with some of these issues that are basically like children's book. Let me find it real quick. Where is it? There we go. Where the paneling is sideways. I think that's really fascinating. Kind of makes me think of like some of the old like Berenstain Bears books, but also like this very gritty atmosphere. But there are definitely things I have issues with. For one, I really wish that Jeff hadn't tried to give an explanation on how the virus started in this. Now, to his credit, he does manage to keep things just vague enough to where it's up to personal interpretation if the cause of the virus is the one that he shares, or if it's just the ravings of a mad lunatic and superstition. But nonetheless, I kind of wish he hadn't entertained an explanation for the virus. I really think that kind of denigrated the series a little bit. I think if he had left it a little more vague, I think it would have been fine. Now, with that said, I did appreciate my most recent reread that I did with, Ori and Natalie and a couple other people. I did appreciate how I did notice that Lemire did build that up a little more. He had built that mystery up from the beginning, so it's not like he pulls it out from nowhere. I just kind of wish that he hadn't tried to kind of touch it, if you will. Lemire definitely straddles the line of making the mistake that people like Mike Mignola or James Tynion IV have made, which is giving too much information about your strange, unusual world, because ironically that kind of kills or maybe not ironically, but predictably enough, that'll just kind of kill the mood. Now, fortunately, though, I think that Lemire keeps his focus on the characters and not so much on answering the big mystery, if you will. So it doesn't quite go into that lost direction where it gets super convoluted. And I find that it's where he focuses on the characters where Lemire really reveals his true masterstroke. I really think that Sweet Tooth's ending is one of the best that I've ever encountered. Definitely not just in this medium of comic books, but in any of them. Kind of like with Garth Ennis's Preacher, which is another great comic. There's a sense of finality to the ending of Sweet Tooth. There's nothing really else to be done, and there's nothing really left unsaid, kind of like that series. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate a series that kind of wraps everything up in a way that feels very satisfying. And it's also very moving, I think, the ending of Sweet Tooth, as the characters kind of move on from the world of man. But that's a little spoilery, so I won't really get into that. But the ending of Sweet Tooth, I think, is really where I think this series shined. It's really great. The climax is great, and the ending is great as well. Though, again, there are some gripes I could mention, but aside from that, not really much else to say. I find that Sweet Tooth is to Jeff Lemire what Preacher is to Ennis, or what The Invisibles is to Grant Morrison, or even what Saga is to Brian K. Vaughan. It's really the purest expression of everything that Jeff Lemire is as an artist and as a human being. Now, I'm not saying that this is the one that is closest to Lemire emotionally, though it definitely well could be, but I don't know the guy, so, I don't know. But I find it's the best book that encapsulates everything that Lemire is. It's an expression of everything that Lemire is as an artist and as a person, and it basically everything that Lemire is and will ever be. And everything that he has made before and since Sweet Tooth really can't match up to it, in my opinion. It was really the story that Lemire had been chasing after his entire career, and he finally subdued it long enough to where we could finally enjoy it at last. And Sweet Tooth is one of those comics that really reminds me of the magic that this medium can bring. It reminds me of comics' potential as a medium. It's definitely a high that I constantly chase and am often let down by a lot of comics whose ambition can't really match the depth of storytelling that I think that comics can reach, that I've found in many of the best. Sometimes, and I've done this a few times, I do sometimes question if my standards are too unrealistic, if I set too high of a goal for myself and for the many books and comics that I read. But honestly, it's books like Sweet Tooth that reminds me that my search is worthwhile, that I'm not just wasting my time, and my standards may not be as high as I think they might be sometimes. But yeah, Sweet Tooth is really up there with one of the best, in my opinion anyway. But in the end, Sweet Tooth is a story. This is a story about a strange young boy with antlers named Gus. He's right there. It's a young boy who saw humanity at its best and its worst. A boy who made a connection with a man who thought that violence was the only thing he was ever good for, and showed him that maybe, just maybe, he could aspire to do something better with himself. It's a story about a world transitioning from the flawed humanity of the past into something else for the future. It's a story about despair, trial and error, and the intense power, redeeming power even, of human love. But at the end of the day, this is a story about hope, and about where life is, their hope remains. That got pretty intense. So let's calm down a minute. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed making this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys pick up Sweet Tooth at some point. I think this series is one of the best that comics can offer, and I'm surprised more people haven't read this. I find a lot of people who really love those character-driven narratives would really have a nice time getting their biting their teeth into Sweet Tooth. But anyway, social media. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Blue Sky and Instagram. I don't really use Blue Sky all that much, but I am starting to get the hang of it. But as I said before, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Comment down below. Have you read Sweet Tooth? Let me know what you guys think of it. And if you've read any of Jeff Lemire's comics, let me know which one is your favorite. And as my buddy John Minton likes to say, it feels good when you press that like button and subscribe button. You know, really puts a pep in your step, if you will. But, yeah, that's really all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And until next time, you're Lemire. Glad I finally managed to get a second shot at this. So, yeah. Anyway, until next time, hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys later. Bye-bye.